They thought they were dealing with just another struggling farmer and his old guard dog. The Black Serpent Gang had been terrorizing the rural communities of Willow Creek Valley for months, and Marcus Hayes's modest apple orchard looked like another easy target. What they didn't realize was that the quiet 55-year-old farmer and his Belgian Malinois weren't what they seemed. Before retiring to the peaceful valley, Marcus had been the military's most renowned K9 combat unit trainer, and his dog, Shadow, was the result of 3 decades of specialized breeding and training expertise. Now, as they vandalized his harvest equipment and mocked his warnings, the gang was about to learn why Marcus Hayes and Shadow were once known as the deadliest handler K9 team in modern warfare. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The October morning carried the crisp scent of ripe apples through Willow Creek Valley as Marcus Hayes inspected the damage to his harvesting equipment. The pre-dawn light revealed the extent of destruction. Hydraulic lines severed with surgical precision, control systems methodically disabled, key mechanical components missing entirely. This wasn't just vandalism, it was a calculated attack designed to cripple his operation at peak harvest time. Shadow, his Belgian Malinois, moved methodically alongside him, muscles tense beneath his dark fur. The dog's behavior had changed, subtly over the past hour. Ears slightly more forward, nose working the air with increased intensity. Marcus recognized these minute shifts. They'd saved his life more times than he could count during his previous life. "Easy, boy," Marcus murmured, running his scarred hands over the deep gashes in his apple picker's hydraulic system. The cuts were precise, professional, someone who understood machinery and knew exactly how to disable it. This wasn't random vandalism. The timing was deliberate too, right at the peak of harvest season when every day of delay meant thousands in lost income. Shadow's ears suddenly pricked, and he turned his head slightly northeast. Most people wouldn't notice the dog's subtle change in posture, but Marcus wasn't most people. 28 years of developing advanced K9 combat units had taught him to read the smallest signals. Shadow had picked up something. Probably a vehicle approaching on the back service road, still out of human hearing range. "Mr. Hayes!" The call came from the main gate. Emma Chen, his nearest neighbor, was walking up the gravel drive. The young veterinarian's usual cheerful expression was replaced by worry. "Did they hit you too?" Marcus straightened slowly, his movements controlled despite the old wounds that ached in the morning chill. "Third piece of equipment this month," he confirmed. "Thompson's tractor last week, Wilson's irrigation system before that." "It's getting worse," Emma said, reaching down to scratch Shadow behind the ears. She was one of the few people the dog allowed to touch him besides Marcus. "The Black Serpents are expanding. They're not just targeting farms anymore." Shadow's posture shifted again, more pronounced this time. Marcus caught the slight tilt of the dog's head. 2 vehicles now, approaching from different directions. The gang liked to coordinate their movements, establish dominance through shows of force. He'd seen similar tactics in other parts of the world, though usually with higher stakes than rural intimidation. "They came by my clinic yesterday," Emma continued, her voice dropping. "Said I needed protection insurance for my practice. When I refused, they mentioned how easy it would be for animals to get loose, run into traffic, called it a safety consultation." Marcus studied his neighbor carefully. Emma had come to Willow Creek Valley 3 years ago, building her veterinary practice from scratch. She was good with animals, especially working dogs. She'd even helped treat Shadow for a minor injury last spring. She didn't deserve to be dragged into this. The sound of motorcycles growled in the distance, growing louder. Shadow moved slightly, positioning himself between the approaching noise and Emma without any obvious command. The product of generations, Of careful breeding and training, the dog could read situations and respond automatically in ways that seemed almost supernatural to outsiders. 3 bikes appeared on the main road, slowing as they passed the farm's entrance. The riders wore leather cuts, emblazoned with the black serpent patch, a coiled snake wrapped around a broken crown. Their leader, a muscular man with tribal tattoos crawling up his neck, rode point. His posture, the way he controlled his bike, suggested military background. The 2 flanking riders maintained precise spacing, scanning sightlines professionally. These weren't common thugs playing at being tough. The leader caught Marcus watching and raised a mocking salute. "Nice dog you got there, old-timer," he called out. "Shame if something happened to it." The bikes roared away, leaving dust and implied threats in their wake. "That's Victor Kane," Emma said quietly. "Goes by Viper. Dishonorable discharge from Force Recon 5 years ago. He started the Black Serpents out west, moving east county by county." She caught Marcus's questioning look and added, "I treat some of the sheriff's canines. You hear things." Marcus nodded, processing the information. Shadow had gone still beside him, but not the stillness of relaxation. The dog was cataloguing scents, movements, details that most humans would miss. They developed this awareness together through countless operations, refined it into something beyond typical canine capabilities. "The sheriff doing anything?" Marcus asked, though he suspected the answer. Emma's expression turned bitter. "Sheriff Collins says without direct evidence of who's doing the vandalism, his hands are tied. Claims they're just a motorcycle club. No proof of criminal activity." She hesitated. "Some people are saying he's being paid to look the other way." The distant rumble of more motorcycles carried across the valley. Shadow's ears twitched. 3 bikes again, different direction. The Black Serpents were marking their territory, making sure everyone saw them. Classic intimidation tactics, but executed with military precision. "Town meeting tonight at Wilson's barn," Emma said. "People are scared, trying to decide what to do. You should come, Marcus. Share your thoughts." Marcus kept his expression neutral, but his mind was already working, analyzing patterns and identifying pressure points, the same tactical assessment he'd taught to specialized canine units for decades. The Black Serpents had chosen Willow Creek Valley carefully. Isolated farming community, vulnerable targets, compromised law enforcement. Perfect setup for a criminal enterprise. But they'd made a crucial mistake. They hadn't bothered learning about the man whose equipment they'd vandalized, hadn't asked why a simple farmer moved with such precision, why his dog responded to commands that were never spoken aloud, why his eyes constantly scanned for tactical advantages. They hadn't wondered why someone with his resources chose to run a modest apple orchard in a quiet valley. "I'll be there," Marcus said finally. "Might have some ideas worth sharing." After Emma left, Marcus received an unexpected call. "Dad?" His daughter Rachel's voice carried a mix of concern and professionalism through the phone. She'd gotten his message about the vandalism, but her tone suggested she already knew. Being one of the few honest deputies in the county meant she often heard things before they were officially reported. "Got 4 more reports this morning," she continued, bypassing any greeting. "The Black Serpents are expanding their reach. They're targeting businesses now, not just farms." Her voice lowered. "And Dad, they're asking questions about you." Marcus absorbed this information while continuing his perimeter check with Shadow. The dog moved with practiced efficiency, checking specific points without any verbal commands. Needed. Their bond went beyond typical handler-canine relationships. They thought as one, moved as one, the result of countless missions where their lives depended on perfect synchronization. "What kind of questions?" Marcus asked, though he could. "Yes." Shadow's ears twitched slightly. He'd picked up something beyond human hearing range again. "About your background, your military service." Rachel paused. "Someone's been digging into your records, the redacted ones." Marcus nodded slowly. The black serpents were doing their homework, but they were looking in the wrong places. His official military records had been carefully sanitized decades ago. They wouldn't reveal the classified K9 combat program he'd developed, the specialized breeding protocols that had produced dogs like Shadow, or the revolutionary training techniques that had transformed military K9 operations worldwide. "Be careful, Dad," Rachel added. "These guys, they're not just thugs. We found military-grade equipment in some of their operations. Someone's backing them with serious resources." As Marcus continued his property check with Shadow, checking motion sensors, disguised as irrigation equipment, behind the farming tools in his barn lay cases he hadn't opened in years. Inside was gear that had nothing to do with agriculture. Marcus paused at one particular case, running his fingers over the biometric lock. Inside lay the culmination of his life's work: specialized training protocols, breeding records, and classified documents detailing the revolutionary K9 combat techniques he'd developed. Techniques that had transformed Shadow from an exceptional military working dog into something unprecedented. The case also contained training devices that looked deceptively simple: specialized scent markers, ultrasonic emitters, and neural feedback tools that had taken decades to perfect. Equipment that had helped create handler K9 teams capable of operations that most military commanders had considered impossible. But Shadow was different, even from those elite teams. He represented the peak of the program, the perfect synthesis of genetics, training, and the indefinable bond between handler and dog. Marcus closed the barn door, engaging security systems that appeared to be simple agricultural monitoring equipment. Shadow moved silently beside him, every muscle perfectly controlled, every sense attuned to their environment. Together, they'd survived situations that would have seemed impossible on paper. Now, as the morning sun climbed higher over Willow Creek Valley, they were about to face a different kind of challenge. The black serpents thought they were dealing with a simple farmer and his guard dog. They were about to learn the difference between appearance and reality, between ordinary training and the kind of capabilities that reshape how wars are fought. And it had all started because they'd made the mistake of threatening a man who'd spent his life turning working dogs into something extraordinary. Specialized K9 tactical equipment, communication devices, tools for gathering intelligence. He'd chosen this quiet life, traded combat training for apple farming, but the skills that had made him legendary in military circles hadn't faded. Shadow moved beside him with fluid grace, every motion perfectly controlled. The dog was more than a pet or even a working animal. He was the culmination of Marcus's life's work, a perfect synthesis of breeding, training, and partnership. Together, they'd done things that most people wouldn't believe and changed how military K9 units operated worldwide. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The black serpents were about to learn that Willow Creek Valley's farmers weren't as defenseless as they appeared, and it had all started because they mocked the wrong man and his dog. Wilson's barn hummed with barely contained tension as Willow Creek Valley's residents gathered for the town meeting. The old structure, which had hosted community gatherings for 3 generations, seemed to absorb the worried conversations that filled the air. Marcus Hayes sat quietly in a corner, Shadow alert but relaxed at his feet, watching faces and reading body language just as they'd done in countless operations across the world. The demographics of the gathering told its own story. Younger farmers were noticeably absent. Most had already given in to the black serpent's demands for protection money. The ones who remained were the valley's old guard, people who'd worked this land long enough to remember when community meant something more than property values. Dr. James Wilson, The third-generation veterinarian whose grandfather had built this barn stood at the makeshift podium. His normally steady hands trembled slightly as he gripped its edges. "Found 2 more horses with broken legs this morning," he announced, his voice carrying decades of professional control. Professional breaks meant to send a message. Insurance adjusters are calling them accidents, same as with the farm equipment. Marcus noted how several people avoided eye contact at the mention of insurance. The Black Serpent's influence had spread deeper than most realized, corrupting seemingly legitimate businesses that served the farming community. They weren't just demanding protection money, they were creating a system where paying them became the only viable option. Emma Chen, who'd been taking notes on her tablet, spoke up. "It's not just the farms anymore. 3 businesses in town got hit yesterday. The Black Serpents are calling it their community outreach program." Her voice carried bitter humor. "They're offering special rates if people sign up for protection. Voluntarily. What choice do we have?" Michael Thompson, whose family had farmed the South Valley for 4 generations, stood up. "The sheriff's department won't help. Insurance companies are in their pocket. Banks are calling in loans on damaged equipment. They're choking us out systematically." Shadow's ears twitched slightly, catching something beyond human hearing. Marcus had learned to trust these subtle signals. They'd saved lives during operations, in places he still couldn't talk about. A moment later, the distant rumble of motorcycles carried through the barn's open doors. Rachel Hayes, still in her deputy's uniform after her shift, slipped in through the side entrance. Her expression confirmed what Marcus had already guessed. The Black Serpents were monitoring the meeting. Her eyes met his briefly, conveying a silent warning. They both knew that Victor Viper Kane's background in Force Recon meant he understood the value of surveillance and intelligence gathering. "Got something interesting from my contacts in the state police," Rachel announced, moving to stand beside Dr. Wilson. "The Black Serpents aren't just a local problem. They've been moving east county by county, establishing territories. But here's the thing. They're not just taking over communities, they're transforming them." She pulled up a map on the barn's projector screen. "See these areas they've already controlled? Property values dropped initially, then suddenly shot up. New businesses moving in, but all connected to the same shell corporations. They're not just extorting money, they're taking over entire regions through legitimate-looking enterprises." Marcus watched the reactions around the barn. Most people focused on the map, but his trained eye caught others who seemed unusually interested in identifying who was paying attention to Rachel's revelation. Shadow noticed too, his posture shifting slightly to track specific individuals, without being obvious about it. "There's more," Rachel continued. "The Black Serpent's pattern is too sophisticated for a motorcycle gang. Their operations show military-grade planning, professional financial structuring. Someone's backing them with serious resources." "Someone like who?" Thompson demanded. "We tracked some of their shell corporations," Rachel replied. "They lead back to investment groups connected to private military contractors, the same ones that operate in conflict zones overseas." The implications hung heavy in the barn's air. This wasn't just about local intimidation. It was about systematic takeover by forces with international reach. Marcus had seen similar operations in other parts of the world, though usually in regions with less stable governments. Sarah Martinez, who ran the local feed store, spoke up next. "They came by my shop this morning, said they're starting a preferred supplier program. Any business that doesn't participate won't be able to deliver to farms under their protection. They're trying to control the whole supply chain." More motorcycles rumbled past the barn, their engines deliberately loud. Shadow's ears tracked their movement, 5 bikes this time, moving in professional formation. The Black Serpents wanted everyone to know they were being watched. "What about state police?" someone called out. "FBI?" Rachel shook her head. "Sheriff Collins has convinced them it's a local matter, says he's handling it." and without clear evidence linking the black serpents to specific crimes, she left the implication hanging. Marcus noticed Dr. Wilson exchange glances with Emma Chen. There was something else, something they hadn't shared yet. Emma nodded slightly, and the veterinarian cleared his throat. "There's another concern, Doctor," Wilson said quietly. "Been seeing unusual symptoms in livestock across the valley. Patterns that don't make medical sense. First thought it was some new disease, but—" He hesitated. "The effects are too precise, too targeted. Someone's testing something on our animals." The revelation sent a new wave of worried murmurs through. The barn. Marcus felt pieces clicking into place. Shadow's behavior had changed subtly over the past few weeks, spending more time scenting the air, showing increased alertness around certain areas. The dog's enhanced capabilities, developed through decades of specialized breeding and training, made him sensitive to things that even other working dogs might miss. "Testing what?" Thompson demanded. "Don't know exactly," Emma answered. "But I've seen similar patterns in research papers about biological agents. Someone's using our valley as a testing ground, using livestock as preliminary subjects." Marcus watched realizations spread through the gathering. The black serpents weren't just taking over their valley, they were using it for something bigger, something that went beyond ordinary criminal enterprise. Their sophisticated approach, the military precision of their operations, the shell corporations, it all pointed to an operation with much higher stakes than local extortion. Rachel caught his eye again. They both recognized the patterns from their different perspectives. She from law enforcement intelligence, he from decades of classified military operations. The Black Serpents had chosen Willow Creek Valley for specific reasons. Isolated. Location, professional agricultural operations, compromised local authorities. Perfect cover for testing things that wouldn't be allowed anywhere near populated areas. The barn's doors suddenly swung open, revealing 3 Black Serpent members led by Kane's second-in-command, a heavily muscled man with a prosthetic left hand. Marcus recognized him from intelligence briefings Rachel had shared, former Delta Force, discharged after losing his hand in circumstances that remained classified. The gang called him Hook. "Evening, folks," Hook called out, false cheerfulness dripping from his voice. "Having ourselves a little community meeting? Hope you don't mind if we join in. After all, we're part of this community now." Shadow hadn't moved, but Marcus felt the dog's muscles tense beneath his fur. They'd worked together long enough that no obvious signals were needed. The dog was cataloging threats, calculating angles, preparing for multiple scenarios without any visible change in his relaxed posture. "This is a private gathering," Dr. Wilson said firmly, though Marcus noted the slight tremor in his voice. Hook's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Private gatherings, private property, private businesses. Folks around here seem awfully concerned about privacy." He moved into the barn with practiced grace, his men taking up tactical positions near the exits. "Thing is, privacy can be dangerous. People start getting ideas, making accusations. That's not good for community harmony." Marcus watched Hook's men carefully. Their positioning, the way they maintained sightlines while appearing casual. These weren't thugs playing at being tough. They were trained operators, using their skills for criminal enterprise. And Hook's presence here, rather than Kane's, suggested the Black Serpents were more concerned about this meeting than they wanted to appear. The tension in the barn stretched tight as piano wire as Hook's gaze swept the gathered farmers. His eyes lingered briefly on Rachel in her deputy's uniform, then settled on Marcus and Shadow. Something flickered across his face, recognition perhaps, or professional assessment. "Nice dog you got there," Hook commented. "Belgian Malinois, right? Military bred if I'm not mistaken. Interesting choice for a simple farmer." Marcus met his gaze calmly. "Good farm dog. Smart, loyal, protective. That right?" Hook's artificial hand flexed slightly. "Funny thing about protective dogs, they can get overprotective. become a danger to the community. Shame when that happens. Usually means they need to be put down. The threat hung in the air like summer lightning, but Hook had made a crucial mistake in his assessment. He was evaluating Shadow as a military working dog, dangerous but predictable. He hadn't guessed that the calm animal watching him was something far more sophisticated, the product of classified breeding programs and revolutionary training techniques that had transformed how special operations units operated worldwide. "Just sharing some friendly concerns," Hook announced to the barn at large. "After all, that's what community's about, looking out for each other. Think about that when you're discussing your private matters." The temperature in the barn seemed to drop several degrees as Hook's men backed out. Once they were gone, Maria Velasquez, the town's retired army nurse, who now ran a small goat cheese operation, spoke up. "It's not just the livestock showing strange symptoms," she said, her voice carrying the weight of medical expertise. "Been seeing unusual patterns in my regular house calls. People report headaches, unexplained fatigue, respiratory issues. But only in certain areas of the valley." Emma quickly pulled up a map on her tablet. "The affected areas align with specific water drainage patterns," she noted, her veterinary training evident in her analytical approach. "And look at the timing. Symptoms started appearing shortly after the Black Serpents began their infrastructure improvement projects." Marcus watched as she overlaid multiple data points: livestock illness reports, human health incidents, water flow patterns, and the locations of the gang's construction activities. A clear picture began emerging, one that confirmed his worst suspicions. "They're not just testing something," Rachel concluded, studying the data. "They're mapping how it spreads through an agricultural community's natural infrastructure. Water systems, livestock movement, human contact patterns. Using us as a living laboratory," Dr. Wilson finished grimly. "But for what?" Before anyone could respond, Shadow's posture shifted subtly. Marcus recognized the change. The dog had detected something beyond the obvious surveillance outside. Something that his enhanced capabilities, developed through decades of specialized breeding and training, made him uniquely qualified to notice. Marcus caught Rachel's eye and tapped his ear twice, their old signal for electronic surveillance. She nodded almost imperceptibly and continued speaking, but now her words were carefully chosen. "We need to focus on documenting everything," she announced. "Property damage, livestock incidents, health issues. Build a case that even Sheriff Collins can't ignore." But Marcus knew they were really communicating something else to anyone listening. Let them think documentation was their only plan. Let them believe the community was focusing solely on legal channels, while he and Shadow prepared for a very different kind of response. The meeting continued, but now with an undercurrent of unspoken understanding. The Black Serpents weren't just criminals taking over their valley. They were part of something much larger, something that turned quiet farming communities into testing grounds for capabilities that would reshape how modern warfare was conducted. As the people began leaving the barn, Marcus noticed something else. The way certain residents moved, how they maintained awareness of exits and sight lines, subtle signals exchanged. There were others here with military or law enforcement backgrounds. People who'd chosen Willow Creek Valley for the same reason. He had a quiet place to leave certain skills behind. The Black Serpents had chosen this valley carefully, but they'd made a crucial mistake. They assumed they were dealing with simple farmers, failing to realize that rural communities often attracted people with extraordinary backgrounds. People who'd traded combat zones for crop rotation, tactical operations for animal husbandry. Emma approached Marcus as the barn emptied. "They're watching my clinic too closely," she said quietly. "But I've got something you need to see. Test results that don't make any sense unless you're familiar with certain types of military research." Marcus nodded, understanding her caution. "Shadow needs his annual checkup anyway," he replied, establishing their cover story. "Bring whatever records you think are relevant." As the Black Serpent members backed out professionally, never fully turning their backs, Marcus noted how Hook's gaze lingered on Shadow. The former Delta operator had recognized something in the dog's bearing, even if he couldn't quite identify what. The Black Serpents had come to intimidate a community meeting, but they'd inadvertently revealed their own concerns. As the last residents left, Dr. Wilson approached Marcus with deliberate casualness. "Remember when you first came to the valley?" he asked, his voice carrying subtle meaning. "Said you were looking for peace, somewhere quiet to raise apples and work with your dog." Marcus nodded, recognizing the veterinarian's careful phrasing. Wilson had been one of the few who'd guessed there was more to his background, though they'd never discussed it directly. "Valley's got its own history of dealing with threats," Wilson continued. "Long before any of us arrived. Might be worth looking into those old stories, especially the ones about why certain areas were never developed." The implications were clear. Willow Creek Valley had secrets of its own, ones that went beyond individual residents' backgrounds. The Black Serpents thought they were dealing with a vulnerable farming community, but they'd failed to ask why certain families had held their land for generations, why some areas remained mysteriously untouched despite their agricultural potential. Rachel joined them, her deputy's uniform a reminder of how complex their situation had become. "Got something else," she said quietly. "Those shell corporations backing the Black Serpents. They're connected to research programs that officially don't exist. Programs about pushing the boundaries of human and animal capabilities." Marcus felt pieces clicking into place. The gang's interest in Shadow wasn't just professional recognition of a military-trained dog. They, or rather their backers, had somehow learned about the classified breeding program he'd developed. A program that had created working dogs with capabilities that most people would consider impossible. The war for Willow Creek Valley was about to enter a new phase, but it wouldn't just be about a former military trainer and his extraordinary dog defending their home. It would be about a community with its own deep secrets, its own hidden strengths, and its own ways of dealing with those who threatened what they'd spent generations protecting. And it had all started because criminals who thought they were taking over a simple farming valley were about to learn that appearances, especially in places with long histories and deep roots, could be dangerously deceptive. Dawn painted Willow Creek Valley in shades of amber as Marcus, Hayes, and Shadow moved silently through the orchard's northern section. The morning dew had barely settled when Shadow's behavior shifted, head slightly higher, nostrils flaring as he processed scents that no ordinary dog could detect. Marcus recognized the change immediately. Someone had accessed the property through the hidden ravine, thinking the steep terrain would mask their approach. The intruders were good, professional-grade thermal camouflage, sound discipline, careful movement patterns, but they hadn't counted on facing a dog whose sensory capabilities had been enhanced through generations of specialized breeding and revolutionary training techniques. Shadow could detect subtle changes in air pressure from human movement, process complex scent combinations that would overwhelm normal canines, and interpret environmental signals that most handlers didn't even know existed. Marcus tracked their progress through Shadow's nearly imperceptible reactions. 3 operators, moving in a modified infiltration pattern he recognized from classified NATO manuals. The Black Serpents weren't just conducting surveillance anymore, they were probing his defenses with military precision. His phone vibrated once, Rachel's signal that she'd picked up movement on the valley's back roads. The gang was coordinating. Multiple teams, establishing a containment perimeter while their infiltration unit gathered intelligence. Standard special operations procedure executed with professional expertise. Shadow's ears twitched slightly. The intruders had split up, adopting a triangulation pattern. They were good, but they'd made a crucial mistake. Their thermal gear and sound suppression equipment was designed to counter standard military working dogs. Shadow was something else entirely. A subtle hand signal sent the dog moving through. The orchard rose like a ghost. Marcus had spent decades developing training protocols that transformed the traditional handler-canine relationship into something unprecedented. Shadow didn't just follow commands. He interpreted complex tactical situations and responded automatically, making split-second decisions based on training so advanced it remained classified. The first intruder never saw what hit him. Shadow moved with impossible speed and precision, using techniques Marcus had developed for classified military operations. No barking, no growling, just precise pressure points and carefully calculated force. The man was unconscious before he could trigger his radio alert. Marcus moved forward to secure the operator, noting the high-end tactical gear. The equipment was military-grade, but deliberately unmarked, the kind of gear used by private military, contractors operating in grey areas of international law. The Black Serpents were better funded than even Rachel's intelligence had suggested. Shadow was already moving toward the second intruder, but something made him pause. His posture shifted, in a way Marcus had seen only a few times before, during operations involving specialized chemical and biological agents. The dog's enhanced capabilities were detecting something beyond standard tactical threats. The sound of motorcycles approaching from multiple directions carried across the valley. Standard distraction technique. Use obvious movement to mask subtle operations. But the gang's military precision had become a predictable pattern, one that Marcus could exploit. His phone buzzed again. Emma this time. The text was brief, but confirmed his suspicions. Blood work results back. Impossible compounds. Need to talk now. Shadow suddenly went rigid, every muscle tense. Marcus dropped instantly, trusting his dog's enhanced senses. A moment later, a low-frequency pulse swept through the orchard, some kind of advanced acoustic. Weapon designed to incapacitate both humans and animals. Standard military dogs would have been completely disabled. But Shadow wasn't standard. The classified breeding program had incorporated resistance to such weapons, creating working dogs that could operate in environments most people thought impossible. The pulse passed over them harmlessly as Shadow tracked its source. The remaining intruders were moving with new urgency now. They'd expected their acoustic weapon to clear the way for a thorough search of the property. Instead, they'd revealed their position and capabilities without achieving any tactical advantage. Marcus's radio crackled, a secure channel he hadn't used in years. Mockingbird nest is compromised, a familiar voice transmitted. Primary objective confirmed. Contingency Alpha is active. The code phrases hit him like physical blows. Mockingbird had been the classified designation for the advanced breeding program he'd developed. If its security was compromised, the implications went far beyond local criminal activity. The Black Serpents weren't just testing biological agents. They were after something specific, something they thought he had. Shadow's ears suddenly pivoted, tracking multiple new threats. The motorcycle noise had been covering the approach of vehicles, heavy ones based on the subtle ground vibration Marcus could feel. The gang was escalating, bringing in serious equipment. His phone buzzed one final time. Dr. Wilson now. Chemical signatures in livestock blood work match classified DoD research. They're looking for your old project. The pieces clicked into place with cold clarity. The Black Serpent's sophisticated operation, their military precision, the biological testing, it was all connected to his past work. Someone wanted to replicate the classified breeding program that had produced dogs like Shadow. Dogs with capabilities that most people still considered impossible. Through the orchard rows, Marcus caught glimpses of tactical vehicles moving into position. The gang had dropped any pretense of being simple criminals. These were professional operators, deploying for a serious operation, using equipment that shouldn't exist outside of classified military units. Shadow moved closer, his posture conveying, Complex tactical information without any need for verbal commands. Years of working together in situations too classified to discuss had created a partnership that went beyond handler and dog. They could read environments and respond to threats in perfect synchronization, their movements so coordinated they seemed to share one mind. The morning air suddenly carried new scents. Chemical agents designed to disorient both humans and animals. Standard crowd control compounds mixed with something else, something that made Shadow's nostrils flare in a way Marcus had seen only during certain classified operations. "Target is contained," a voice carried from the tactical vehicles. "Initiate." Protocol 7. Marcus recognized the voice. Hook, Kane's second-in-command, but the terminology was wrong for a former Delta operator. Protocol 7 had been a designation used in the original breeding program, one that only a handful of people should have known. Shadow's behavior confirmed his suspicions. The dog wasn't just reacting to tactical threats anymore. His enhanced capabilities were detecting specific chemical signatures that shouldn't have existed outside of highly classified research facilities. The Black Serpents hadn't chosen Willow Creek Valley randomly. They weren't just using it as a testing ground for biological agents. They were after something specific: technical data from the classified breeding program, genetic samples, training protocols that had never been declassified. Marcus reached for his phone, but Rachel was already ahead of him. "DoD contractors spotted at private airfield," her text read. "Black Serpents are just the front. Someone with serious resources is pulling the strings." The tactical vehicles had established a perimeter now, their positioning showing expert coordination. These weren't just gang members playing soldier. They were professional operators with advanced training and sophisticated equipment. Shadow's ears suddenly tracked something beyond human hearing range. Moments later, a new sound carried across the valley. Helicopter rotors, but not the usual civilian or law enforcement patterns. These were military-grade aircraft operating in stealth mode. The morning sun revealed more tactical teams moving into position, their movements showing the kind of coordination that only came from extensive special operations experience. The Black Serpents had been a cover, allowing someone to establish infrastructure and test security measures while hiding their true objectives. Marcus felt cold certainty settle over him. This wasn't just about defending his farm or protecting the valley anymore. Someone was trying to recreate his classified work using criminal enterprises as cover for research that had been shut down for good reasons. Shadow pressed against his leg briefly, their signal for incoming threats from multiple directions. The dog's enhanced capabilities were picking up patterns that even the most sophisticated military sensors might miss. Patterns that suggested this operation was larger and more complex than anyone had realized. The war for Willow Creek Valley was about to shift into something far more dangerous than local criminal activity. And it would begin because someone had made the mistake of thinking they could replicate classified military research without understanding why it had been shut down in the first place. Through his orchard's rows, Marcus watched as more tactical teams deployed. They thought they were executing a sophisticated containment operation, but something about their positioning bothered him. The teams were deployed in a modified pentagonal pattern he'd seen only once before, during the final phase of Project Nightwatch, when they'd first discovered the true potential of enhanced canine capabilities. His secure radio crackled again. "Sundance, actually, be advised," the familiar voice transmitted. "Mockingbird wasn't the only nest. They found Echo Base." Marcus felt his blood run cold. Echo Base had been the program's secondary facility where they developed the neural interface, protocols that had revolutionized handler canine operations. If that security was compromised, Shadow suddenly pressed against his leg twice, their signal for chemical weapons. The dog's enhanced sensory capabilities were detecting something in the morning air, something beyond standard tactical agents. Marcus pulled out specialized testing equipment disguised as agricultural sensors. The readings confirmed his worst fears. "They're not just recreating the program," he subvocalized to Shadow, knowing the dog could read his micro-expressions and barely audible speech. "They're trying to merge it with the Echo-based protocols." The implications were staggering. The original breeding program had produced dogs with unprecedented capabilities, but they'd shut down Echo Base precisely because the neural interface protocols had proven too dangerous. Combining both programs wasn't just reckless, it was potentially catastrophic. His phone buzzed with an encrypted message from an old contact. "Critical, Project Silverback reactivated. All former Mockingbird assets are now priority alpha targets." Shadow's ears suddenly tracked a new sound, something beyond the tactical teams and helicopter support. The dog's behavior showed recognition patterns Marcus hadn't seen in years, not since their last classified operation together. Through the orchard rows, he caught glimpses of new figures moving with impossible grace. Their movements weren't just professional, they were enhanced. The Project Silverback reference suddenly made terrifying sense. The Black Serpents weren't just a criminal enterprise being used as cover. They were a testing ground for combining multiple classified programs. Mockingbird's enhanced canine capabilities, Echo Base's neural interfaces, and now Silverback's human enhancement protocols. The morning air suddenly carried a new scent, one that made Shadow's hackles rise in a way Marcus had never seen before. The dog wasn't just detecting threats, he was recognizing something fundamental about their opponent's nature. The tactical teams were changing formation now, moving with a coordination that went beyond military training. Marcus had seen similar patterns during Echo Base's final days, when they discovered that certain enhancements could create synchronized unit movements that defied normal human limitations. His radio crackled one final time. "Sundance, you have arrived. They've deployed the Alpha prototypes." Through the orchard's morning mist, Marcus caught his first clear look at what they were really facing. The tactical teams weren't just equipped with advanced gear, they were physically modified. Project Silverback's enhancement protocols, combined with Echo Base's neural networking. Shadow moved closer, his body language conveying complex tactical information. The dog's enhanced capabilities weren't just detecting threats anymore. They were recognizing patterns that shouldn't have been possible outside of classified research facilities. The war for Willow Creek Valley had just become something far more dangerous than anyone had realized. Someone wasn't just trying to recreate classified military programs, they were combining them in ways that had been specifically forbidden because of the risks involved, and it was all centered on one crucial objective: capturing the only handler canine team that had ever successfully merged Mockingbird's breeding program with natural enhancement protocols. The only team that had achieved breakthrough capabilities without risking the catastrophic side effects that had shut down Echo Base. Marcus watched as more enhanced operators moved into position. They thought superior numbers and advanced modifications would guarantee victory. Instead, they were about to learn why certain capabilities couldn't be artificially replicated. Why the bond between handler and dog, developed through years of natural partnership, was more powerful than any engineered enhancement. The morning sun revealed the full scope of what they were facing: an army of enhanced operators, backed by classified military technology, all focused on capturing the secrets that had made Shadow unique. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They assumed that raw power and artificial enhancement could match capabilities that had evolved naturally through years of partnership and trust. They were about to learn why Marcus Hayes and Shadow had been considered too valuable to ever risk in standard combat operations. why their methods had been classified beyond top secret. The war for Willow Creek Valley was about to demonstrate the difference between engineered superiority and natural evolution, between artificial enhancement and genuine partnership. And it would begin because someone had made the mistake of thinking they could replicate through force what could only be achieved through years of mutual trust and understanding. Emma Chen's veterinary clinic was quiet as Marcus examined the lab results spread across her desk. Shadow lay alert by the door, his enhanced senses monitoring both the clinic's interior and the street outside. The test results painted a disturbing picture, one that went far beyond simple biological weapons testing. "Look at these protein markers." Emma pointed to a complex molecular diagram. "They're trying to replicate Shadow's enhanced capabilities through chemical manipulation, but there's something else." She pulled up another scan. "These neural patterns in affected livestock, they match classified research about accelerated cognitive development." Marcus studied the data, recognizing patterns he hadn't seen since his days running the breeding program. "They're not just testing weapons," he concluded. "They're using the valley's livestock as test subjects for enhancement protocols, trying to shortcut years of careful breeding and natural development." His phone buzzed. Rachel sending updated surveillance data. The Black Serpents had established new facilities in abandoned farm properties across the valley. What looked like simple agricultural operations were actually sophisticated research sites. "Got something else," Emma said quietly, closing the blinds before activating a specialized scanner. "Been detecting unusual electromagnetic signatures around certain properties, frequencies that match what you described from Echo Base." Shadow's ears twitched, confirming the readings. The dog's enhanced capabilities included sensitivity to electromagnetic fields, a natural development that the Echo-based protocols had tried to artificially replicate. Marcus accessed a hidden compartment in his tactical vest, removing specialized equipment that looked deceptively simple. "These sensors were designed to track Echo-base experiments," he explained. "Modified them for agricultural use, but they still work for their original purpose." Emma watched as he calibrated the devices. "The enhanced operators we saw, they're using some kind of neural network, aren't they? That's why they move with such coordinated precision." "Part of it," Marcus confirmed. Project Silverback developed enhancement protocols for individual operators. Echo Base created networking systems to link enhanced units. Someone's combined both programs, using the Black Serpents as cover for field testing. Shadow suddenly moved to the window, his posture conveying complex tactical information. Through the clinic's front glass, they watched as a convoy of unmarked vehicles moved through town. The trucks looked like ordinary agricultural transport, but their suspension and thermal signatures told a different story. "They're moving equipment," Emma observed. "But why now?" Marcus checked the data from his modified sensors. "They're accelerating their timeline. The protein markers in those blood samples, they show degradation patterns. Their artificial enhancements are unstable." The implications were clear. The combined programs were producing impressive short-term results, but at a devastating cost. They needed Shadow's genetic material and training data to stabilize their protocols before their enhanced operators began breaking down. His secure radio cracked with an encrypted transmission. "Sundance, Priority 1 update. Echo-based protocols showing critical instability. Enhanced units experiencing severe neural degradation. Time window is collapsing." Emma's computer suddenly pinged with new test results. "Marcus, look at this. The affected livestock. Their cellular structure is changing. Some kind of accelerated evolution, but it's not stable. The changes are cascading out of control." Shadow moved to Marcus's side, pressing against his leg in a specific pattern, their signal for detecting multiple threat types. The dog's enhanced senses were picking up both biological and electromagnetic signatures, suggesting the enemy was deploying their full arsenal. "They're getting desperate," Marcus concluded. "The combined programs are failing faster than they expected. They need Shadow's natural enhancement patterns to stabilize their artificial protocols." Emma pulled up satellite imagery showing new construction at the Black Serpent's facilities. These structures, they're not just research sites. They're containment units. They're preparing to capture and hold enhanced subjects. Marcus recognized the designs from his classified work. Those aren't just containment units. They're designed specifically for enhanced canines. They're building facilities to hold Shadow. His phone buzzed again, this time with data from Dr. Wilson. The veterinarian had been monitoring livestock movement patterns across the valley, using his grandfather's old records as cover for tracking unusual activity. "They're establishing a perimeter," Marcus analyzed the patterns. "Using affected animals as early warning systems, the electromagnetic fields are influencing their behavior, creating a living security network." Shadow's ears suddenly tracked something beyond human hearing range. Moments later, Emma's specialized equipment detected a spike in electromagnetic activity. The enemy was testing their neural network, pushing their enhanced operators to new limits. "We need to move fast," Marcus decided, reaching for equipment he hadn't used since his active service days. Their accelerated timeline means they'll take bigger risks, make mistakes we can exploit. Emma watched as he assembled specialized gear that looked like ordinary agricultural equipment. "What's the plan?" "They're using 3 key technologies," Marcus explained. "Biological enhancement, neural networking, and electromagnetic field manipulation. Each one unstable on its own, catastrophic when combined. But they've overlooked something crucial. Shadow moved to a specific position, demonstrating the natural grace that no artificial enhancement could match. The dog's movements weren't just efficient. They showed a perfect integration of advanced capabilities and instinctive behavior. Shadow's enhancements evolved naturally," Marcus continued, "through careful breeding and training, not artificial acceleration. His neural patterns developed through real partnership, not synthetic networking. That's why he can detect and counter their technologies without being affected by them." Emma's equipment detected new electromagnetic signatures. "They're deploying more enhanced operators. The neural network is expanding." Marcus checked his modified sensors one final time. "Good. Let them think superior numbers and artificial enhancement guarantee victory. They haven't realized that true capability isn't about raw power. It's about natural development and genuine partnership." Shadow's posture shifted slightly, acknowledging new tactical information without any obvious command. Their years of working together had created a synchronization that went beyond handler and dog, beyond even the most advanced neural networking. "Time to show them the difference between artificial enhancement and natural evolution," Marcus said quietly, checking his specialized equipment. "Between engineered superiority and genuine partnership." The war for Willow Creek Valley was about to enter its critical phase. The enemy had impressive technology and enhanced operators, but they'd overlooked something fundamental. They thought they could replicate through force and artificial means what had taken years of careful breeding and natural development to achieve. Marcus accessed another hidden compartment in his equipment, removing a device that looked like a standard agricultural soil tester. "This was part of the original program," he explained to Emma, "designed to monitor the subtle electromagnetic fields that naturally enhanced dogs generate. We discovered something fascinating. Their fields create unique interference patterns with artificial enhancement signals." Emma studied the readings. "That's why Shadow can detect their enhanced operators. He's not just sensing them, he's naturally disrupting their neural networks." "Exactly," Marcus confirmed. The artificial enhancements rely on strict frequency patterns, but naturally enhanced capabilities operate on multiple shifting frequencies. It's like trying to jam a radio signal that constantly changes wavelength. His secure radio crackled with another encrypted transmission. Sundance, we've decoded their neural network protocols. They're using a modified echo base algorithm, but there's severe signal degradation. Enhanced operators showing signs of cognitive breakdown. Shadow moved to another position in the clinic, his behavior demonstrating a complex tactical assessment without any verbal commands. The dog's natural enhancements weren't just physical. They included cognitive developments that had evolved through generations of careful breeding. Look at this. Emma highlighted new data on her screen. The affected livestock near their facilities. Their brain chemistry is changing, some kind of forced evolutionary response to the electromagnetic fields, but it's causing systemic failures. Marcus recognized the patterns. They're trying to replicate in weeks what took us years to develop naturally, forcing biological systems to adapt faster than they can stabilize. That's why they need Shadow's genetic material. His enhancements evolved gradually, allowing for proper neural integration. A ping from Emma's specialized equipment drew their attention. New electromagnetic signatures were appearing across the valley, showing a coordinated pattern that Marcus hadn't seen since Echo Base's final days. They're not just networking their enhanced operators, he realized, studying the data. They're trying to create a valley-wide control system, using the electromagnetic fields to influence both human and animal behavior on a massive scale. Shadow's ears tracked something beyond the equipment's range. Moments later, they heard it too, a low-frequency hum that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The enemy was testing their control system, pushing its range to new limits. That's why they chose this valley, Emma concluded. The geological features, the water table, the mineral deposits, they create natural resonance patterns that amplify their signals. Marcus checked another modified sensor. But they don't understand the full implications. These formations don't just amplify signals, they create unique interference patterns. Patterns that naturally enhance capabilities can be exploited. His phone buzzed with urgent data from Rachel. The Black Serpents were moving more equipment into their facilities, including specialized containment units designed for enhanced subjects. But satellite imagery showed something else. Stress fractures appearing in their buildings, electromagnetic interference affecting their power systems. Their own technology is working against them, Marcus explained, showing Emma the structural analysis. The amplified fields are causing unexpected reactions. That's why they're accelerating their timeline. Their whole system is becoming unstable. Shadow suddenly pressed against Marcus's leg 3 times. Their signal for detecting biological agents combined with electromagnetic anomalies. The dog's enhanced senses were picking up dangerous interactions between the enemy's various technologies. "We need to move soon," Emma said, checking new test results. "These cellular degradation patterns in affected subjects, they're accelerating. If their control system reaches full power, it won't," Marcus assured her, reaching for specialized equipment he'd modified for exactly this scenario. They think technology and artificial enhancement give them the advantage, but they've overlooked something crucial about naturally evolved capabilities. He opened a secure case containing devices that looked like ordinary agricultural sensors. Each one had been carefully modified to interact with natural electromagnetic fields in specific ways. "In the original program," he explained, "we discovered that naturally enhanced dogs don't just generate their own electromagnetic fields. They can influence and redirect other fields. It's like having a built-in countermeasure system that adapts automatically to new threats." Emma watched as he calibrated the devices. That's why Shadow hasn't been affected by their control system. He's not just resisting it, he's actively disrupting it. More than that, Marcus said, checking the final adjustments. His natural capabilities are showing their technology's fundamental flaws. You can't force evolution or artificially replicate natural development. The more they push their systems, the more unstable they become. Shadow moved to the clinic's door, his posture conveying complex tactical information about enemy movements outside. Through the windows they could see more unmarked vehicles moving into position, carrying equipment that hummed with dangerous energy. "They're deploying their full arsenal," Emma observed, monitoring the electromagnetic signatures. "Enhanced operators, neural networks, biological agents, control systems. Let them," Marcus said quietly, making final preparations. "Let them think superior technology and artificial enhancement guarantee victory. They haven't realized that true capability isn't about raw power or forced evolution." He checked his specialized equipment one last time, each piece designed to work with natural electromagnetic fields rather than against them. The enemy had impressive technology and enhanced operators, but they'd overlooked something fundamental about natural evolution and genuine partnership. The war for Willow Creek Valley wasn't just about defending against advanced technology or artificial enhancement. It was about demonstrating why certain capabilities couldn't be rushed or synthetically replicated. Why the natural bond between handler and dog, developed through years of trust and genuine understanding, was more powerful than any engineered solution. And it would begin because someone had made the mistake of thinking they could force evolution to match what could only be achieved through time, trust, and natural development. Midnight draped Willow Creek Valley in shadows as Marcus and Shadow moved silently through the eastern sector of Thompson's abandoned farm. The Black Serpents had converted the old dairy facility into what looked like a standard agricultural processing center, but Shadow's enhanced senses detected something else entirely. The dog's muscles tensed as he processed electromagnetic signatures that shouldn't exist outside of classified research facilities. "Contact front," Rachel's voice whispered through their secure comm channel. She'd positioned herself in the old grain silo, providing overwatch while maintaining her cover as a routine patrol. 6 enhanced operators moving in a modified phalanx formation, neural network active but showing signal degradation. Marcus watched through specialized optics as the enemy team approached their position. Their movements were unnaturally synchronized, suggesting active neural linking, but he could detect subtle flaws in their coordination. The artificial enhancements were already beginning to break down. Shadow's ears suddenly tracked something. Beyond the tactical team, a high-frequency oscillation that made the dog's hackles rise. Marcus recognized the response from their classified operations. Someone was activating next-generation control systems, pushing electromagnetic field manipulation to dangerous levels. Multiple signatures converging, Emma reported from her mobile veterinary unit, parked innocently on the county road. Her modified medical equipment could detect both biological and electromagnetic anomalies. "They're deploying something new. Neural patterns I've never seen before." Through his tactical scope, Marcus caught his first clear look at what they were facing. The enhanced operators weren't just linked through neural networks anymore. They were physically transforming. Artificial evolution accelerated to impossible speeds. Shadow pressed against his leg in a specific pattern, their signal for detecting hybrid threats. The dog's enhanced capabilities weren't just identifying individual dangers anymore. They were recognizing complex patterns that suggested the enemy had achieved dangerous new breakthroughs. "Sir," Rachel's voice carried controlled urgency. "You need to see this. They're not just enhancing their operators. She hesitated. "They're trying to replicate Shadow's capabilities. But something's wrong." Marcus adjusted his optics, focusing on the approaching team. The enhanced operators moved with predatory grace, but there was something unstable about their movements. Their artificial evolution was pushing beyond human limitations, but at a terrible cost. Neural degradation accelerating, Emma confirmed through the comm. Their biological enhancement protocols are interacting with the electromagnetic fields in ways they didn't predict. It's causing cascade failures in their control systems. Shadow suddenly went rigid, every enhanced sense focused on the facility's main structure. Through the tactically modified windows, they could see new equipment being activated. Equipment that combined biological enhancement technology with electromagnetic field generators in ways that violated every safety protocol from the original program. They're attempting full integration, Marcus realized, recognizing patterns he hadn't seen since Echo Base's final days, trying to force their enhanced operators to evolve past the neural degradation. The night air suddenly felt charged with dangerous energy as the facility's systems powered up. Enhanced operators moved into defensive positions, their movements showing both incredible capability and increasing instability. They were evolving past human limitations, but their artificial advancement was literally burning them out. Shadow's posture shifted slightly, a subtle change that told Marcus everything he needed to know. The dog's naturally evolved capabilities were detecting critical flaws in the enemy's systems, flaws that could be exploited if they moved fast enough. Multiple breaches detected, Rachel reported. They're losing containment on their electromagnetic fields. Sir, the enhanced operators are starting to break protocol. Their neural networks are fragmenting. Marcus watched through his scope as the enemy team's coordinated movements began to falter. The artificial evolution was accelerating beyond their control system's ability to maintain stability. Their enhanced capabilities were impressive, but they were paying a devastating price for rushing natural development. They've detected us, Emma's voice carried professional calm. Enhanced operators converging on your position, but their neural patterns are severely degraded. They're operating on instinct now, not tactical protocol. Shadow moved slightly, positioning himself for what they both knew was coming. Years of partnership had created a synchronization that went beyond handler and dog, beyond even the most advanced neural networking. They didn't need artificial enhancement or electromagnetic control systems. Their capabilities had evolved naturally through trust and genuine understanding. The facility's floodlights suddenly activated, bathing the area in harsh illumination. Enhanced operators moved to intercept them, their movements showing both superhuman capability and increasing instability. They were powerful but falling apart, their artificial evolution consuming them from within. Sir, Rachel's voice carried new urgency. They're activating their primary systems, trying to stabilize their operators by amplifying the electromagnetic fields. But the geological formations, they're creating feedback loops. Marcus recognized the danger immediately. The valley's natural features weren't just amplifying the enemy's signals. They were creating resonance patterns that would tear their control systems apart. And when those systems failed, their enhanced operators would be left without the artificial support, keeping them stable. Shadow pressed against his leg 3 times. Their signal for imminent system collapse. The dog's enhanced senses could detect how the enemy's various technologies were interacting, creating a cascade effect that would soon reach critical levels. All units clear the area, Marcus ordered through the secure comm. They've lost control of their evolution protocols. When their systems fail... He didn't need to finish the thought. Everyone who'd worked with enhanced capabilities knew the dangers of pushing artificial evolution too far. The enemy had tried to replicate through technology what could only be achieved through natural development. Now they were about to face the consequences. The enhanced operators were closing in, their movements becoming more predatory as their neural networks degraded. They were evolving past human limitations, but without the stability that came from natural development. Each enhancement pushed them closer to total breakdown. Shadow moved to an alert position, his naturally evolved capabilities preparing to counter threats that most military units weren't equipped to handle. The dog's enhanced senses could detect exactly how the enemy's systems were failing, allowing them to anticipate and exploit critical weaknesses. Multiple system failures imminent, Emma reported, her modified equipment detecting dangerous power. Fluctuations. The electromagnetic fields are becoming unstable. Their control systems can't handle the feedback. Marcus watched through his tactical scope as the enemy's impressive technology began turning against them. Their enhanced operators were incredible fighting machines, but they were literally being consumed by artificial evolution pushed too far too fast. "Sir," Rachel's voice carried grim certainty, "they're about to learn why the original program focused on natural development instead of artificial enhancement. The war for Willow Creek Valley was about to demonstrate the difference between forced evolution and natural development, between artificial enhancement and genuine capability. And it would begin because someone had made the mistake of thinking they could rush what nature had taken generations to perfect. The facility's systems were reaching critical levels, their electromagnetic fields creating dangerous resonance patterns with the valley's natural features. Enhanced operators moved to surround them, their artificial evolution pushing them past human limitations, but also past the point of stability. Shadow remained calm beside Marcus, the dog's naturally evolved capabilities preparing to counter threats that no amount of artificial enhancement could match. They hadn't achieved their legendary status through technology or forced advancement. They'd earned it through years of partnership and natural development. The night air crackled with dangerous energy as the enemy's control systems began to fail. Through his tactical scope, Marcus watched the enhanced operators' movements become increasingly erratic. Their artificial evolution had pushed them beyond normal human capabilities, but at a devastating cost. New data from the electromagnetic sensors. Emma's voice carried professional urgency. The enhanced operators, their neural patterns are showing signs of quantum entanglement. They're not just linked through technology anymore. Artificial evolution is creating connections that shouldn't be possible. Shadow's ears suddenly tracked a new threat. Something beyond the approaching operators. The dog's enhanced senses detected a change in the facility's power signature that made his muscles tense in a way Marcus hadn't seen since their classified operations. "They're attempting emergency protocols," Rachel reported from her position, "activating some kind of biological stabilization system. Sir, these readings match restricted files from Project Dreamcatcher." Marcus felt cold certainty settle over him. Dreamcatcher had been the program's ultimate black project, an attempt to push enhanced capabilities beyond physical limitations. They'd shut it down when they discovered it could alter the fundamental nature of living tissue. "Multiple quantum signatures detected," Emma confirmed. "The stabilization system is creating some kind of coherent field effect. It's not just affecting their enhanced operators, it's changing the local laws of physics." Through his specialized optics, Marcus could see the truth of her words. The enhanced operators weren't just moving with superhuman ability anymore, they were beginning to affect the space around them. Their artificial evolution had pushed them into realms that the original program had specifically avoided. Shadow pressed against his leg 4 times, their signal for detecting reality distortion. The dog's naturally evolved capabilities included sensitivity to quantum-level changes, a development that had emerged gradually through careful breeding rather than forced advancement. "Sir," Rachel's voice carried controlled fear, "the quantum effects are spreading. They're enhanced operators. They're becoming something else. something that shouldn't exist in our normal reality. Marcus watched as the enemy team's movements defied normal physics. Their artificial evolution had pushed them past human limitations, past biological constraints, and now past the boundaries of conventional reality. But the cost was becoming catastrophically clear. Total system collapse imminent, Emma reported, her modified equipment detecting power fluctuations that threatened to tear reality apart. The quantum fields are creating feedback loops with the valley's natural electromagnetic patterns. When their containment fails, she didn't need to finish. Everyone who'd worked with enhanced capabilities knew the dangers of pushing quantum effects too far. The enemy had tried to force evolution past the barriers that nature had established for good reasons. Now they were about to face consequences that went beyond simple system failure. Shadow's posture shifted slightly, a change that told Marcus exactly what was coming. The dog's naturally evolved sensitivity to quantum effects could detect how the enemy's desperate attempts at stabilization were actually accelerating their descent into chaos. Multiple reality breaches detected, Rachel reported, her voice steady, despite the impossible readings. The enhanced operators, their quantum entanglement is creating localized singularities. Sir, they're literally tearing holes in space-time. Through his tactical scope, Marcus watched as the enemy's impressive technology began consuming itself. Their enhanced operators had achieved capabilities beyond anything the original program had imagined, but they were paying the ultimate price for rushing what should have taken generations to develop naturally. New quantum signatures approaching. A critical mass, Emma's voice carried professional detachment. The stabilization system is failing. When it collapses, the reality distortions will... A sudden surge of energy from the facility cut her off. The enemy's desperate attempt to control their quantum-enhanced operators had created a cascade effect that threatened to reshape the fundamental nature of local space-time. Shadow remained calm beside Marcus, the dog's naturally evolved capabilities, preparing to counter threats that went beyond normal reality. They hadn't achieved their legendary status through quantum manipulation or artificial enhancement. They'd earned it through years of partnership and natural development that respected the boundaries of nature. The night air shimmered with impossible energies as the enemy's control systems reached critical failure. They'd tried to replicate, through technology, what could only be achieved through natural evolution. Now they were about to learn why some developments couldn't be rushed, why some boundaries existed for fundamental reasons. Dawn painted Willow Creek Valley in shades of gold as Marcus studied the gathered group in his barn's hidden command center. They weren't just farmers anymore. Each person represented a crucial piece of a sophisticated response network that would rival military special operations units. Quantum stabilization fields are still active, Emma reported, her veterinary equipment modified to detect both biological and dimensional anomalies. The enemy's enhanced operators survived last night's reality breach, but they're different now. Their artificial evolution has pushed them into some kind of quantum flux state. Dr. Wilson nodded grimly, pulling up complex biological scans on the tactical display. Similar patterns appear in affected livestock. Their cellular structure is showing signs of dimensional instability. It's like their very atoms are trying to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Marcus watched as Shadow moved methodically. Around the gathered group, the dog's enhanced senses cataloging subtle changes in each person's quantum signature. After the reality breach, they discovered that exposure to the enemy's failed experiments had left traces on everyone in the valley. "Got something interesting from my contacts," Rachel said, activating a secure data feed. "Remember those shell corporations backing the Black Serpents? They're connected to a classified defense project called Operation Threshold. It was supposed to develop ways to push human evolution past current dimensional limitations. That tracks with what we're seeing," Maria Velasquez added, her military medical training evident as she analyzed biological data. These quantum mutations in the enhanced operators, they're not just physical changes, they're altering fundamental aspects of reality around them. Marcus accessed a hidden compartment in his tactical gear, removing specialized equipment that looked deceptively simple. These sensors were part of Project Dreamcatcher's original containment protocols, he explained. Modified them for agricultural use, but they can still detect quantum-level threats. Sarah Martinez, who'd been quietly monitoring communications from her feed store's hidden surveillance center, spoke up through the secure channel. Multiple anomalies detected along the valley's eastern ridge. The enemy's quantum-enhanced operators are establishing some kind of dimensional perimeter. Shadow's ears suddenly tracked something beyond normal space-time, a subtle distortion in reality that made the dog's enhanced senses alert to new threats. Through years of natural evolution and careful breeding, his capabilities had developed to detect dangers that existed outside conventional physics. They're not just trying to contain their experiments anymore, Marcus realized, studying the sensor data. They're attempting to create a stable quantum zone where their artificial evolution can continue without reality trying to correct itself. That's why they chose this valley, Emma concluded, overlaying geological and quantum maps. These formations aren't just amplifying electromagnetic fields, they're creating natural quantum stability points, perfect for containing dimensional anomalies. Frank Cooper, whose family had farmed the South Valley for generations, cleared his throat. There's something else, he said quietly, something our families have kept secret for decades. Those stability points, they're not natural. They were engineered long before any of us were born. The revelation sent a ripple through the gathered group. Marcus felt pieces clicking into place, why certain areas had never been developed, why some families had held their land for generations, despite more profitable offers. The valley was designed, Rachel breathed, seeing the patterns emerge on their tactical displays. Someone turned this whole region into a quantum containment system disguised as farmland. But why? Because they knew this day would come, Doctor, Wilson answered, pulling up old records that had been carefully preserved through generations of valley families. That sooner or later, someone would try to push evolution past natural boundaries. They created a failsafe, hiding it in plain sight as agricultural land. Shadow moved to Marcus's side, the dog's naturally evolved capabilities already adapting to this new understanding of their home. Unlike the enemy's enhanced operators, whose artificial evolution had pushed them into dangerous quantum states, Shadow's abilities had developed in harmony with the valley's hidden purpose. We're not just defending farmland anymore, Marcus said, accessing specialized equipment he'd modified for exactly this scenario. We're protecting a quantum containment system that's been active for generations. And we've got something the enemy doesn't. Decades of experience working with these stability fields, disguised as normal agricultural operations. Emma's equipment detected new anomalies as the enemy's quantum-enhanced operators pushed against reality's boundaries. They're getting desperate, she reported. Artificial evolution is accelerating beyond their control. They need this containment system to stabilize their experiments. Then let's show them why some boundaries exist for good reasons. Marcus decided, distributing specialized gear that looked like ordinary farming equipment. Why natural evolution, developed over time in harmony with existing quantum fields, is more powerful than artificial enhancement that ignores fundamental laws of reality. Sarah's voice crackled through their secure channel, multiple quantum signatures approaching from the east. They're enhanced operators. They're not just moving through space anymore, they're folding it somehow, creating shortcuts in reality. Shadow's posture shifted slightly, a change that told Marcus exactly what they were facing. The dogs, Natural sensitivity to quantum effects could detect how the enemy's desperate attempts at stabilization were actually making things worse, pushing their enhanced operators further from normal reality. "All units activate containment protocols," Marcus ordered, watching as Valley residents moved to positions that had been carefully prepared through generations. "Let's show them why this land has been protected for so long. Why can't some capabilities be rushed or artificially enhanced?" The war for Willow Creek Valley had become something far more complex than a simple conflict over farmland. Marcus turned to the gathered group, noting how each person's quantum signature had subtly shifted since the reality breach. They weren't just farmers defending their land anymore. They were the inheritors of a legacy that went beyond normal understanding. "There's more," Frank Cooper said, accessing ancient farm records that had been carefully preserved through generations. "Our families didn't just maintain the quantum containment system. We were chosen specifically for this task. Each bloodline, selected for natural resistance to dimensional instability." Dr. Wilson pulled up genetic scans that confirmed this revelation. "Look at these markers." He highlighted complex patterns in the Valley residents' DNA. They're not mutations or artificial enhancements. They're natural adaptations developed over generations of living near quantum stability points. "That's why the enemy's artificial evolution is failing," Emma realized, comparing biological data. "They're trying to force immediate changes that should take generations to develop naturally. Their enhanced operators are achieving incredible capabilities, but at the cost of dimensional stability." Shadow moved to a specific position in the command center, his behavior demonstrating complex quantum awareness without any obvious commands. The dog's naturally evolved capabilities had developed in harmony with the Valley's hidden purpose, creating a synchronization that went beyond physical reality. "Got something from the old military archives," Rachel reported, bringing up classified files on their tactical display. Project Threshold wasn't the first attempt at quantum enhancement. There were others, decades ago, but they all failed for the same reason: trying to rush evolution past natural boundaries. Maria Velasquez studied medical readings from her modified equipment. The quantum mutations in their enhanced operators, they're not just becoming unstable. They're creating ripple effects in reality itself. Each artificial evolution pushes them further from normal space-time. Marcus accessed another hidden compartment, revealing equipment that combined ancient farming tools with advanced quantum technology. "These were part of the original containment system," he explained, "designed to look like agricultural implements, but actually monitoring and maintaining dimensional stability." "Multiple quantum breaches detected," Sarah's voice carried through. "Their secure channel. The enemy's enhanced operators. They're not just creating shortcuts in space anymore. They're tearing holes in the fabric of reality itself." Thompson, whose family had maintained the South Valley's stability points for generations, spoke up. "There's something else in those old records. Something about why certain crops were planted in specific patterns. They weren't just for show. They were creating natural quantum barriers." Emma quickly overlaid agricultural maps with quantum stability readings. "Look at this." She highlighted complex patterns that had been hidden in plain sight. The crop rotation, the irrigation systems, even the livestock movement patterns. They're all part of a sophisticated dimensional containment grid. "And Shadow can interact with it naturally," Marcus added, watching as the dog's enhanced senses adapted to this new understanding. His capabilities didn't just evolve for combat or detection. They developed specifically to work with these quantum fields. Through their tactical displays, they watched as the enemy's quantum-enhanced operators pushed against reality's boundaries. Their artificial evolution had given them incredible powers, but each new capability pushed them further from stable existence. "We need to activate the full containment system," Frank advised, accessing generations of hidden knowledge. Our families have maintained these fields for decades, disguising quantum technology as normal agricultural operations. Time to show them why. Marcus distributed specialized equipment that looked like ordinary farming tools, but contained sophisticated quantum monitoring technology. Each piece is calibrated to work with the valley's natural stability points, he explained, designed to contain dimensional breaches while appearing to be normal agricultural activity. Sir, Rachel's voice carried new urgency. The enemies. Quantum signatures are changing. They're enhanced operators. They're trying to merge with the dimensional anomalies they've created, attempting some kind of conscious reality manipulation. Shadow's ears tracked something beyond normal perception, distortions in space-time that made the dog's enhanced capabilities alert to new threats. Through careful breeding and natural evolution, he had developed abilities specifically designed to counter quantum-level dangers. All units prepare for dimensional containment, Marcus ordered, watching as Valley residents moved to positions that had been carefully prepared through generations. Remember your family training. Every crop row, every irrigation channel, every grazing pattern, they're all part of the containment system. Emma's equipment detected new anomalies as the enemy's desperate attempts at artificial evolution pushed them further from normal reality. The quantum mutations are accelerating, she reported. Their enhanced operators are achieving incredible capabilities, but they're losing their connection to our dimension. That's why this valley is so important, Dr. Wilson realized, studying ancient genetic records. It's not just a containment system, it's a stabilization matrix, designed to prevent exactly this kind of artificial quantum evolution from tearing reality apart. The war for Willow Creek Valley had become a battle for the fundamental stability of space-time itself. They weren't just fighting against enhanced operators or artificial evolution. They were defending a quantum containment system that had been protecting reality for generations. And it would begin because someone had made the ultimate mistake, thinking they could force evolution past dimensional boundaries without understanding why those limitations existed in the first place, without realizing that some capabilities had to develop naturally, in harmony with the fundamental laws of reality itself. The Black Serpent's command center hummed with dangerous energy as Victor Viper Kane studied the quantum readouts on his tactical display. His enhanced operator's latest evolution had revealed something unexpected about Willow Creek Valley, patterns that went far beyond simple farming operations. "Show me the overlay again," he ordered, his voice carrying new harmonics from his own partial quantum enhancement. Hook brought up the composite scan, showing both traditional satellite imagery and dimensional stability readings. The patterns were undeniable. Every aspect of the valley's agricultural activity served a deeper purpose. Their farm equipment isn't just modified technology, Hook observed, his cybernetic hand interfacing directly with their quantum monitoring systems. It's part of some kind of legacy containment grid, been active for generations, hiding in plain sight. Kane's tactical display suddenly flickered as reality distorted around their facility. Their enhanced operator's artificial evolution was pushing against dimensional boundaries, creating ripples in space-time that threatened to tear reality apart. But something was containing the damage, channeling the quantum instability into carefully prepared channels disguised as irrigation systems. "Sir," one of their science team reported, her own partial enhancements allowing her to process quantum data directly. "We've decoded more of Morrison's background. He wasn't just a military K9 trainer, he was part of something called Project Nightwatch. They weren't developing combat dogs, they were creating quantum-sensitive detection systems disguised as normal working animals. The implications hit Kane like a physical blow. Shadow wasn't just a highly trained military dog, He was a naturally evolved quantum detection system, the product of generations of careful breeding designed to create capabilities that his own artificial enhancements were struggling to replicate. Multiple dimensional breaches detected, Hook reported, as their enhanced operators pushed harder against reality's boundaries. But the damage isn't spreading randomly. The valley's containment grid is channeling it, using patterns that look like normal agricultural activity. Kane studied the tactical footage from their last confrontation. Morrison and his dog had demonstrated capabilities that went beyond anything their artificial evolution had achieved. But instead of forcing quantum enhancement like their own operators, they worked in harmony with existing dimensional fields. "Sir?" Another technician called out, his quantum-enhanced senses detecting new patterns. Found something in the old land records. The original families who settled this valley, they were chosen specifically. Each bloodline carries genetic markers for natural quantum stability. The command center's sensors suddenly registered massive power fluctuations as their enhanced operators attempted another evolution. The artificial quantum enhancement was pushing them past normal physical limitations, but each breakthrough pushed them further from stable reality. "They're losing coherence," Hook warned, his cybernetic systems detecting dangerous patterns. "The forced evolution is accelerating beyond our control protocols. Without access to the valley's stabilization grid, then we take it," Kane decided, accessing systems that hummed with dangerous energy. "Mobilize all enhanced units. If this valley was designed as a quantum containment system, we'll use it to stabilize our own evolution." Through their tactical feeds, they watched as reality itself seemed to warp around their advancing forces. Their enhanced operators had achieved incredible capabilities, but the artificial quantum evolution was consuming them from within. Each new power pushed them further from normal space-time. "Sir," Hook's voice carried new urgency. "Morrison's dog, it's not just detecting our quantum signatures, it's naturally interfacing with the valley's containment grid. That's why their capabilities seem so advanced. They're working with existing dimensional fields instead of forcing artificial evolution." Kane felt cold certainty settle over him as he watched their enhanced operators deploy. They had impressive technology and artificially evolved capabilities, but they were fighting against something far more sophisticated, a quantum containment system that had been protecting reality itself for generations. "Activate the threshold protocols," he ordered, knowing the risks. "Push our operators past normal evolutionary boundaries. If we can't stabilize naturally, we'll force reality to accept our artificial advancement." The command center's systems pulsed with dangerous energy as they initiated emergency evolution protocols. Their enhanced operators began transforming again, pushing past physical limitations into realms that defied normal physics. But each advancement came at a terrible cost. "Multiple reality breaches detected," Hook reported, his cybernetic systems struggling to process the quantum data. "The artificial evolution is creating dimensional instabilities faster than the valley's containment grid can channel them." Through their tactical displays, they watched as their enhanced operators achieved impossible capabilities. They could fold space, manipulate time, exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously, but each new power pushed them further from stable existence. "Sir," the science officer's voice carried controlled fear, "quantum mutations are accelerating beyond prediction. Our operators aren't just evolving anymore. They're becoming something that shouldn't exist in normal reality." Kane studied the sensor readings, recognizing patterns that suggested imminent catastrophe. Their artificial evolution had given them incredible power, but they were paying the ultimate price for rushing what should have taken generations to develop naturally. "All units advance," he ordered, knowing they were past the point of no return. "Take control of those stability points. If we can't achieve natural quantum evolution, we'll force this valley's containment system to accept our artificial advancement. The command center's sensors registered massive dimensional distortions as their enhanced operators pushed reality past its breaking point. They had achieved capabilities beyond anything the original quantum programs had imagined, but they were about to learn why some evolutionary boundaries existed for fundamental reasons. Through their tactical feeds, they watched as Morrison and his dog moved to counter their advance, but instead of matching power with power, they worked in harmony with the valley's natural quantum fields. Their capabilities hadn't been forced through artificial evolution. They had developed naturally, in sync with dimensional laws that couldn't be violated without consequences. The war for Willow Creek Valley had become a battle between artificial quantum enhancement and natural evolution. Through the command center's quantum-enhanced displays, Kane watched as his enhanced operators achieved impossible capabilities, but at a devastating cost. "Sir," the chief science officer reported, her partial enhancements allowing her to process complex quantum data. "We've decoded more of Project Nightwatch's original purpose. They weren't just developing advanced detection capabilities. They were creating a new form of evolution, one that could safely interact with quantum-level reality." Hook's cybernetic systems interfaced with their tactical network, revealing new patterns in the valley's seemingly ordinary agricultural activities. Every crop rotation, every irrigation channel, even the livestock grazing patterns, they're all generating specific quantum frequencies, creating a harmonized field that stabilizes dimensional boundaries. And Morrison's dog evolved to work with those fields naturally, Kane realized, studying footage from their previous encounters. While we're forcing quantum enhancement through artificial means, they've achieved something more fundamental, a natural evolution that operates in harmony with dimensional laws. The command center's sensors suddenly registered massive power fluctuations as another enhanced operator lost quantum coherence. Their artificial evolution had pushed them past normal physical limitations, but the cost was becoming catastrophically clear. "Sir," a tactical officer called out, his own enhancements struggling to process the data, "we're detecting new patterns in the Valley residents' genetic structure. These aren't random adaptations. Each family line carries specific markers for quantum stability, passed down through generations." Kane accessed classified files that hummed with dangerous energy. "Project Threshold wasn't our first attempt at quantum enhancement," he revealed, showing records of previous programs. "There were others decades ago, but they all failed for the same reason, trying to force immediate evolution that should take generations to develop naturally." Through their tactical feeds, they watched as reality itself warped around their advanced teams. Their enhanced operators could manipulate space-time, exist in multiple quantum states, achieve capabilities that defied physics. But each new power pushed them further from stable existence. "The Valley's containment grid is adapting," Hook reported, his cybernetic hand interfacing with increasingly unstable systems. "It's not just channeling quantum instabilities anymore. It's actively working to correct artificial evolutionary patterns that violate dimensional laws." The science officer's quantum-enhanced analysis revealed disturbing new data. "Artificial evolution isn't just affecting our operators physically," she warned. "It's changing the fundamental nature of their existence. Each enhancement pushes them further from normal reality, making it harder to maintain coherent form." Kane studied the tactical situation with growing concern. His enhanced operators had achieved incredible capabilities, but they were literally being consumed by artificial evolution, pushed too far too fast. The Valley's quantum containment system wasn't just limiting their powers. It was trying to protect reality itself from their unnatural advancement. "Multiple dimensional breaches detected," Hook announced, as another team of operators pushed past evolutionary boundaries. The artificial quantum enhancement is creating tears in space-time faster than the containment grid can repair them. Through their monitoring systems, they watched as Morrison and Shadow moved to counter their advance. But instead of matching, power with power, the handler and dog worked in perfect harmony with the valley's natural quantum fields. Their capabilities hadn't been forced through artificial means. They had developed naturally over time, in sync with fundamental dimensional laws. "Sir," the tactical officer's voice carried new urgency. "The quantum mutations are accelerating, exponentially. Our operators aren't just achieving new capabilities anymore. They're evolving past the point where normal reality can contain them." Kane felt cold certainty settle over him as he watched his enhanced forces deploy. They had impressive technology and artificially evolved powers, but they were fighting against something far more sophisticated, a quantum containment system that had been protecting dimensional stability for generations. "Activate the Omega protocols," he ordered, knowing the terrible cost. "Push our operators past final evolutionary boundaries. If we can't achieve stable quantum enhancement naturally, we'll force reality to accept our artificial advancement." The command center's systems pulsed with dangerous energy as they initiated emergency evolution sequences. Their enhanced operators began transforming again, achieving powers beyond anything the original programs had imagined. But each new capability pushed them further from stable existence in normal space-time. "Critical quantum threshold breached," Hook reported, his cybernetic systems barely able to process the dimensional data. The artificial evolution is creating reality distortions that even the Valley's containment grid can't channel safely. Through their tactical displays, they watched as their operators achieved godlike powers. They could manipulate fundamental forces, exist outside normal time, reshape reality itself. But each enhancement came with a devastating price. The further they evolved artificially, the less they could exist in stable dimensional space. "Sir," the science officer's analysis carried grim certainty, "we've pushed past the point of no return. The quantum mutations aren't just changing our operators anymore. They're becoming something that normal reality was never meant to contain." Kane studied the sensor readings, recognizing patterns that suggested imminent catastrophe. Their artificial evolution had given them incredible power, but they were paying the ultimate price for rushing what should have taken generations to develop naturally. "All enhanced units advance," he ordered, knowing they had no choice but to push forward, seize control of the Valley's stability points. "If we can't achieve natural quantum evolution, we'll force this containment system to accept our artificial advancement, no matter the cost to reality itself." The war for Willow Creek Valley had become something far more dangerous than a battle. Over farmland or military secrets, they were fighting against fundamental laws of reality, trying to force evolution past boundaries that existed for crucial reasons. And it would begin because they'd made the ultimate mistake, thinking they could rush past dimensional laws that had taken billions of years to establish, that they could force immediate advancement without understanding why natural evolution required time and harmony with existing reality. Emma's modified veterinary equipment registered massive quantum disturbances as Marcus and Shadow monitored the valley's eastern perimeter. The enemy's enhanced operators had achieved terrifying new capabilities, but their artificial evolution was creating dimensional instabilities that threatened to tear reality apart. New data from the containment grid, Rachel reported through their secure quantum channel. The enemy's operators aren't just manipulating space-time anymore. They're evolving past normal dimensional constraints, becoming something that shouldn't exist in stable reality. Shadow's ears tracked distortions that human senses couldn't detect, ripples in space-time created by the enemy's desperate attempts at artificial advancement. The dog's naturally evolved capabilities allowed him to process quantum anomalies that would overwhelm even the most sophisticated monitoring equipment. "They're attempting something new," Dr. Wilson observed, studying biological readings from affected areas. "Quantum mutations aren't just changing their operators physically anymore, they're altering the fundamental properties of matter itself around them." Marcus accessed specialized sensors disguised as agricultural monitoring equipment. The readings confirmed his worst fears. The enemy's enhanced forces were achieving powers beyond anything the original programs had imagined, but at a devastating cost to dimensional stability. "The Valley's containment system is adapting," Emma reported, her modified equipment detecting new patterns. "These aren't just random quantum fields anymore. The stability grid is actively working to correct artificial evolutionary patterns that violate natural laws." Through their tactical displays, they watched as reality warped around the enemies. Advanced teams, their enhanced operators could manipulate fundamental forces, exist in multiple quantum states, even fold space-time itself. But each new capability pushed them further from stable existence in normal reality. "Sir?" Sarah's voice carried urgency through their secure channel. "Detecting massive power fluctuations from their command center. They're activating something called the Omega Protocols, some kind of emergency evolution acceleration." Shadow pressed against Marcus's leg in a specific pattern, their signal for detecting critical quantum instabilities. The dog's enhanced senses could process dimensional threats that even the most advanced artificial systems struggled to identify. "They're getting desperate," Frank observed, accessing generations of hidden knowledge about the Valley's true purpose. "Their artificial evolution is consuming them from within, pushing them past the point where normal reality can contain them." Maria's military medical training provided crucial insight as she analyzed new biological data. "Quantum mutations aren't just affecting their operators anymore," she warned. "They're creating cascade effects in normal matter. Everything they touch is being forced to evolve artificially." Marcus studied tactical readings from their modified sensor network. The enemy had achieved incredible capabilities through artificial enhancement, but they'd overlooked something fundamental about quantum evolution. "Look at these patterns." He highlighted specific anomalies in the data. "Their enhanced operators are trying to force immediate advancement that should take generations to develop naturally. But the Valley's containment system isn't just limiting their powers. It's trying to protect reality itself from unnatural evolution." Emma's equipment suddenly detected new quantum signatures as the enemy's forces pushed harder against dimensional boundaries. "The artificial enhancement is creating tears in space-time faster than the containment grid can repair them," she reported. "If they keep forcing evolution past natural limits." Shadow's posture shifted slightly, a change that told Marcus exactly what they were facing. The dog's naturally evolved capabilities weren't just detecting quantum threats anymore. They were recognizing patterns that suggested imminent dimensional collapse. "They're going to keep pushing," Rachel concluded, watching through their tactical feeds as more enhanced operators deployed. "Their artificial evolution is consuming them, but they think they can force reality to accept their advancement if they just achieve enough power." Marcus accessed another layer of specialized equipment, revealing devices that combined ancient farming tools with advanced quantum technology. "Then we show them why some boundaries can't be violated," he decided. "Why natural evolution, developed in harmony with dimensional laws, is more powerful than artificial enhancement that ignores fundamental reality." Through their monitoring systems, they watched as the enemy's forces achieved godlike capabilities. They could manipulate time, exist in multiple dimensions, reshape matter itself. But each new power pushed them further from stable existence in normal space-time. "The Valley's containment grid is our advantage," Frank explained, showing how generations of farmers had maintained quantum stability through seemingly ordinary agricultural activities. Every crop rotation, every irrigation pattern, every grazing route, they're all part of a system designed to protect dimensional boundaries. Shadow moved to a specific position, his behavior demonstrating complex quantum awareness without any obvious commands. The dog's enhanced capabilities hadn't been forced through artificial means. They had developed naturally over time, allowing him to work in harmony with the valley's stability fields. Multiple reality breaches detected, Sarah reported, as the enemy's operators pushed past final evolutionary boundaries. Their quantum mutations are creating dimensional instabilities that even the containment grid wasn't designed to handle. Marcus studied tactical readings that showed the true scope of what they were facing. The enemy had achieved incredible power through artificial enhancement, but they were about to learn why some evolutionary boundaries couldn't be rushed or violated without catastrophic consequences. "All units prepare for dimensional containment," he ordered, watching as Valley residents moved to positions that had been carefully prepared through generations. "Remember your family training. We're not just protecting farmland anymore. We're defending reality itself from artificial evolution that threatens to tear it apart." The war for Willow Creek Valley had become something far more dangerous than a battle over territory or military secrets. Through their tactical displays, Marcus and the gathered group watched as reality itself began to unravel around the enemy's enhanced operators. "Found something in the old containment protocols," Dr. Wilson reported, accessing records that had been carefully preserved through generations. The Valley's quantum stability grid wasn't just designed to contain dimensional breaches. It was created to guide evolution itself, to allow for natural advancement while preventing artificial acceleration. Emma's modified equipment suddenly detected new patterns in the quantum distortions. The enemy's operators, they're not just pushing past dimensional boundaries anymore. Their artificial evolution is creating what looks like conscious reality manipulation. They're trying to reshape fundamental laws to accept their unnatural advancement. Shadow pressed against Marcus's leg twice, then 3 times, their signal for detecting hybrid quantum threats. The dog's enhanced senses weren't just picking up dimensional instabilities anymore. They were recognizing patterns that suggested reality itself was beginning to reject the enemy's artificial evolution. Multiple anomalies detected in the Eastern Containment Zone, Sarah reported through their secure channel. The enhanced operators, they're achieving something new, not just manipulating space-time, but actually trying to rewrite the rules that govern stable existence. Marcus studied readings from their specialized sensors, recognizing patterns he hadn't seen since Project Nightwatch's final days. They're attempting quantum sovereignty, he realized, trying to create pocket universes where their artificial evolution can continue without normal reality trying to correct it. "That's what the Omega protocols are really about," Rachel added, analyzing tactical data. "They're not just pushing for more power, they're trying to force reality itself to accept their unnatural advancement as a new baseline for existence." Through their monitoring systems, they watched as the enemy's enhanced operators achieved capabilities that defied comprehension. They could fold space like paper, step outside normal time, exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. But each new power came at a terrible cost to dimensional stability. "The Valley's containment grid is adapting," Frank observed, accessing generations of hidden knowledge. "Look at these resonance patterns. Every crop field, every water source, every grazing route is generating specific quantum frequencies, creating a harmonic field that naturally counters artificial evolution." Maria's medical expertise provided crucial insight as she analyzed new biological data. The quantum mutations in their operators, they're not just changing physical form anymore. They're trying to evolve past the fundamental laws that make stable existence possible. Shadow's ears suddenly tracked something beyond normal perception. Distortions in reality that made the dog's enhanced capabilities alert to new threats. Through natural evolution and careful breeding, he had developed abilities specifically designed to work with dimensional stability fields. "Sir," Sarah's voice carried controlled urgency, detecting massive power signatures from their command center. "They're attempting something called total quantum override, some kind of forced evolutionary acceleration beyond anything they've tried before." Marcus accessed another layer of specialized equipment, revealing devices that combined ancient farming wisdom with advanced quantum technology. "Every family in this valley was chosen for a reason," he explained. "Each bloodline carries specific genetic markers that allow us to work with these containment fields naturally." Emma's modified sensors suddenly detected new anomalies as the enemy's desperate attempts at artificial evolution pushed reality to its breaking point. "The quantum mutations are creating cascade effects," she reported. "Their operators aren't just evolving anymore. They're becoming something that threatens the very fabric of existence." "Then we show them why natural evolution exists," Marcus decided, distributing specialized gear that looked like ordinary farming equipment but contained sophisticated quantum monitoring technology. "Why can't some boundaries be violated without consequences? Why true advancement requires harmony with existing dimensional laws." Through their tactical feeds, they watched as the enemy's enhanced operators achieved godlike powers. They could manipulate fundamental forces, reshape matter at will, even alter the flow of time itself. But each new capability pushed them further from stable existence in normal reality. "The valley's containment system is ready," Frank reported, showing how generations of farmers had maintained quantum stability through seemingly ordinary agricultural activities. Every field, every water source, every natural feature positioned exactly where it needs to be to contain dimensional breaches. Shadow moved to a specific position, his behavior demonstrating complex quantum awareness without any verbal commands. The dog's enhanced capabilities hadn't been forced through artificial means. They had developed naturally over time, allowing him to work in perfect harmony with the valley's stability fields. "Multiple reality breaches detected," Sarah warned, as the enemy's operators push past final evolutionary boundaries. "Their quantum mutations are creating dimensional instabilities that threaten to tear holes in the fabric of existence itself." Marcus studied tactical readings that showed the true scope of what they were facing. The enemy had achieved incredible power through artificial enhancement, but they were about to learn why some evolutionary boundaries couldn't be rushed or violated without catastrophic consequences. "All units initiate containment protocols," he ordered, watching as valley residents moved to positions that had been carefully prepared through generations. "Remember your family training. We're not just protecting farmland anymore. We're defending the fundamental stability of reality itself." The war for Willow Creek Valley had become a battle to preserve the very nature of existence. They were fighting against forces that threatened to unravel the fabric of reality, trying to prevent artificial evolution from destroying the dimensional stability that natural development had taken billions of years to establish. And it would begin because someone had made the ultimate mistake, thinking they could force immediate advancement without understanding why evolution required time and harmony with existing reality. That they could rush past quantum boundaries that existed to protect the very foundations of existence itself. Marcus stood in front of the holographic tactical display, eyes narrowing as he processed the data before him. The valley, his home, was more than just a place of natural beauty and generational wisdom. It was the last defense against a force that had grown too powerful, too desperate. The battle was no longer just about military superiority. It was a war against the very essence of reality. "Time is running out," Dr. Wilson said, breaking Marcus's concentration. The older man was a scientist, but not the kind who sought to manipulate nature for power. His quiet, steady voice always seemed to bring a sense of calm in the chaos, and Marcus knew that he was relying on him more than ever. Marcus turned to the rest of the team. "If we let them continue pushing these limits, there's no going back," he said with quiet conviction. "They're already rewriting the rules of existence. We have to stop them before they fracture the dimensional boundaries completely." Emma's voice chimed in from across the room, her eyes glued to her screens. "The Omega protocols. They're not just trying to evolve themselves anymore. They're going for full-scale control over the dimensional fields." "Yes," Frank agreed, adjusting the frequency patterns on his own console. "They think they can escape the valley's containment grid, forcing the system to accept their unnatural evolution. But there's something they've overlooked." His eyes twinkled with a mix of concern and pride. "They can't escape the consequences of tampering with what's natural. Nature's checks and balances will always prevail." "That's right," Rachel added, glancing at Marcus. "The valley isn't just a barrier, it's a living system, a reflection of a delicate balance that has been maintained for centuries. They can't just brute force their way through it." Marcus nodded, feeling the weight of the situation. This wasn't just a battle for survival, it was a battle for the future of existence itself. The artificial evolution they had introduced wasn't merely an enhancement. It was an abomination that could rewrite the laws of physics, biology, and time. They were now up against a threat that defied comprehension, a force that no longer followed the rules. Sarah's voice broke through the tension. Through the massive destabilization detected in the northern sector, the containment grid is shifting. They're pushing harder than before. Reality itself is starting to bend in on itself. It won't hold much longer. Shadow's posture shifted again, alert and tense, as if the very air around him vibrated with something he sensed but couldn't name. The dog's advanced abilities, honed over years of evolution, made him more in tune with dimensional shifts than anyone else in the team. He stood at Marcus's side, his intelligent eyes scanning the environment, alert to dangers even beyond human perception. "We have to act now," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. He turned to Emma, who was already readying her devices. "We need to release the stabilization frequencies now, override their attempts at quantum sovereignty, before they completely destabilize this dimension." Emma nodded, her fingers flying across the control panel as she activated a series of emergency systems designed to stabilize quantum fields. She knew the risks. Releasing those frequencies could backfire, causing the grid to collapse entirely. But the alternative was even worse, letting the enemy rewrite reality. Frank, ever the historian, stepped forward with a deep breath. The valley wasn't just a place, it was a legacy, a way of life based on harmony with natural forces. We've spent centuries understanding that. The artificial evolution these enemies have forced is like a disease. It needs to be eradicated before it spreads. Rachel stood by his side, her eyes reflecting the gravity of their task. They've forgotten the most basic rule. Evolution requires time. It's a gradual process shaped by natural forces. Trying to accelerate it artificially doesn't just break the laws of physics. It creates consequences beyond imagination. Suddenly, the monitors flickered, and a series of new readings flashed across the tactical screens. The enemy was activating something new, something far more dangerous. "Total quantum override is initiated," Sarah reported with urgency. "They're trying to break through every last quantum lock. We won't be able to hold them back much longer." Marcus's heart raced, but his resolve only strengthened. "We've prepared for this. The valley has been a sanctuary, not just for life, but for balance. We protect it, not just for ourselves, but for all dimensions. We can't let them destroy it." With a single motion, Marcus activated the final phase of their defense. The ancient agricultural devices, those seemingly simple tools that had carried generations of farmers, now hummed with the power of quantum technology, transmitting frequencies that had been perfected over the ages. Their purpose wasn't just to feed the land, but to maintain the delicate quantum harmony between dimensions. Shadow, sensing the final step, took his place at the heart of the containment zone, his presence reinforcing the ancient harmony. The Zai team watched as the containment grid activated, shimmering with the power of generations of accumulated wisdom. The enemy, desperate and blinded by their own ambition, continued pushing forward, unleashing their ultimate abilities. But reality began to fight back. The artificial evolution they had so recklessly unleashed began to backfire, tearing at the very fabric of existence. As the quantum frequencies from the valley's grid surged, the unnatural forces struggled to hold their ground. "Now," Marcus commanded, his voice sharp. "Focus all remaining energy on the northern breach." A blinding pulse of energy emanated from the valley's core, a wave of quantum stability that reverberated through the very fabric of space-time. The enemy's forces, caught in the wave, screamed as they were torn from the threads of reality, their bodies and minds unraveling in ways no one could have predicted. Marcus watched the feed as the dimensional rifts began to close, the containment grid stabilizing once more. But there was no time for relief. He knew this was only a temporary victory. The enemy would be back, more determined than ever. But for now, Willow Creek Valley stood strong, its ancient defenses intact. "We've won this round," Marcus said, his voice a mix of relief and determination. "But the war isn't over. We have to ensure that artificial evolution never threatens the balance of reality again." As the team gathered around him, the weight of their victory settled in. The valley had protected them, but now they knew the real fight had only just begun. As the valley's containment grid hummed to life, stabilizing the ruptures in space-time, Marcus and his team stood in silence, watching the ripples of energy fade into the distance. The victory was bittersweet. For a moment, it felt like they had stopped the inevitable, yet they all knew this was just the beginning. Emma, her brow furrowed in concentration, glanced over the latest readouts. "The containment grid is holding, but barely. The Omega protocols have left behind residual quantum instability. The frequency shifts in the grid's harmonic pattern are unstable. We need to stabilize it, or we'll risk another breach." Marcus sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. The magnitude of what they had just stopped felt overwhelming, but the real challenge had yet to reveal itself fully. The enemy had only begun to explore the terrifying potential of their artificial evolution, and if they had learned anything, it was that desperation only bred more dangerous tactics. "They'll try again," Frank said, his voice low but certain. They were on the verge of breaking through. Their quantum sovereignty plan, it wasn't just about force. It was about rewriting everything, every law of existence. They won't give up. Rachel nodded, scanning the horizon through the tactical window, and they have no idea what they're up against. They're chasing power without understanding its cost. This isn't a war over territory anymore. This is a war over the very framework of reality itself. Marcus turned toward the group, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing harder now. "We need to plan for their next move, and we need to be ready for what comes after that." Sarah, who had been monitoring the situation from her station, spoke up. "I've detected something new, not another direct assault, but more like a subtle manipulation." The enemy's operators are trying to reconfigure their quantum signatures at a deeper level. It's like they're searching for vulnerabilities in the grid's frequency. They're adapting quickly. Dr. Wilson leaned forward, eyes narrowing, at the data in front of him. They're not just enhancing themselves physically anymore, they're trying to infiltrate the grid's quantum matrix. If they succeed, they'll breach the core of the valley's defenses. Then we need to anticipate their every move, Marcus said. We can't let them exploit any weak points. If they take the grid apart from the inside, it's not just the valley that's at risk, it's everything. Entire realities could collapse. Emma stepped forward, her mind already racing ahead. We have to enhance the grid's adaptive capabilities. Think of it like a self-healing organism. The valley has worked in harmony with natural processes for centuries, but this is something else. We can't just rely on the old systems anymore. Frank tapped a few controls on his console. I've been running simulations of the enemy's movements. The good news is their enhancements seem to be more physical than purely quantum-based. They're pushing their operators to evolve, but they haven't fully grasped how to adapt their minds to these new forms. That's where we have the advantage. Maria, who had been quietly reviewing biological data, spoke up with concern. Their mutations are evolving faster than natural systems can keep up with. They're reaching a point where their bodies are becoming too unstable to function normally. These enhanced operators are teetering on the edge of complete quantum disintegration. We need to accelerate their instability to force them to retreat. The room went silent for a moment as everyone absorbed Maria's words. It was a sobering thought. If the enemy's enhancements were left unchecked, they could evolve into something no longer recognizable, or worse, something that could destabilize the entire valley. We may not have a choice, Marcus said grimly. We might have to push them beyond the edge, force their evolution to collapse on itself. It's a dangerous move, but it may be the only way to end this before it's too late. Rachel, usually the strategist, hesitated. It could backfire. If we destabilize them too much, we might create more quantum anomalies than we can control. It's a delicate balance. I know, Marcus replied. But if they're not stopped now, they'll keep pushing, keep forcing their artificial evolution, until they consume everything. We've seen what happens when quantum boundaries are crossed too recklessly. I won't let that happen here. Marcus turned to the team, their faces reflecting both determination and fear. This was no longer just a battle. They were standing on the edge of something much greater. They had to make a choice. Risk everything to force the enemy back, or give them time to adapt and evolve beyond their control. In the silence that followed, Shadow's ears perked up, and his sharp eyes fixed on Marcus with a level of intensity that only an enhanced creature could possess. His tail gave a quick, urgent flick, a signal. Something was coming. Multiple reality fluctuations detected, Sarah reported. It's too late for subtlety. They're initiating a full-scale quantum shift. This is it. They're coming for the heart of the valley. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. Prepare for immediate containment. We can't let them reach the core of the valley. The land is our last line of defense. As the team readied themselves, Marcus felt the weight of his ancestors' legacy, those who had lived, farmed, and protected this land for generations. This valley wasn't just their home. It was a carefully maintained quantum system that held the very fabric of reality in balance, and it would be his to protect at any cost. They knew what they had to do, and they had no illusions about the risks, but Marcus wasn't about to let Willow Creek Valley fall. No matter the consequences, he would stand with his team, with the valley, and with everything they had worked to preserve. This ends today, Marcus said, his voice filled with a quiet, determined resolve. We stop them here, together. The ground beneath their feet hummed with the power of the valley's defenses, and as the first tremors of the enemy's assault began to shake the very air, Marcus led his team to the front lines. The ultimate battle for the survival of not just their home, but the very essence of reality had begun. The ground shook as the enemy's quantum assault reached full force. Marcus felt the tremors deep beneath his boots, like the valley itself was bracing for impact. Every breath he took was heavy with the knowledge of what was at stake. This wasn't just a battle for control, it was a battle for existence itself. Shields. Up, Marcus barked, his voice sharp. The team moved with practiced precision, activating the valley's emergency defenses. The once serene landscape of Willow Creek had become a battleground, but not one of traditional warfare. This was a war against the very fabric of reality, and every decision could tip the balance. Emma was already at her station, fingers dancing over the holographic controls. The frequency shifts are intensifying. They're using concentrated quantum beams to destabilize the grid. If we don't counteract this, the core will be exposed. Frank's voice cut through the chaos. We have to force them into a feedback loop. If we reverse the flow of quantum energy through the grid, we can trap them in their own instability. But we'll need to push the system past its normal parameters. To make it work, Marcus nodded, his mind calculating the risk. The containment grid wasn't just a physical barrier. It was an intricate web of quantum harmonics, carefully maintained by generations of agricultural practices. Every crop, every irrigation route, every grazing pattern had been designed to maintain balance with the natural flow of energy. Now they had to push it beyond what it was ever intended to handle. "Do it," Marcus ordered, the weight of the decision pressing on him. "We can't afford to hesitate." Shadow, who had been quietly watching the unfolding scene, shifted again, his body tense. The dog's enhanced senses were on alert, his behavior a stark contrast to the calm confidence the team tried to maintain. It was as if the entire valley could feel the impending danger, and it was responding in kind. Shadow's ears flicked, signaling a new shift in the quantum fields. Sarah, her eyes locked on the data streaming across her console, spoke urgently. "The enemy's signature is growing stronger. They're pulling even more energy to create localized rifts. It's like they're trying to create their own quantum hole to escape into. If they succeed, they'll destabilize not only the valley, but entire regions of space-time." Marcus's gaze hardened. "We can't let them escape. We need to contain them. Before they reach that point, shifting the containment grid's harmonic output now," Emma announced, her voice steady despite the mounting pressure. She began manipulating the frequencies with precision, sending waves of counteracting energy through the grid. The valley hummed and vibrated as the quantum matrix flexed in response, its fields bending in ways they had never been tested for. The air around them shimmered as space itself seemed to ripple. The enemy forces, whose powers were growing ever more godlike, began to appear. Flashes of light twisting through multiple dimensions, appearing and vanishing in the same moment. Their quantum forms were far beyond any normal human capabilities, able to manipulate time, matter, and even the very fabric of space. "We're reaching the limit," Frank shouted, his voice strained as he worked feverishly to adjust the resonance patterns. "The grid is pushing back, but it's not enough yet. We need more." But before he could finish, a brilliant flash erupted from the east. The containment breach had occurred. The valley's shields crackled, flickering against the force of the enemy's concentrated attack. A massive, jagged tear, in reality, opened up before them. An iridescent, swirling vortex that threatened to swallow everything in its path. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.